There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5 in the eBuffy Network. YouTube, check us out, subscribe, type in iNewsWire, Roy Blecker, you'll see my nice smiling face, of course, which on the mighty red KMET, 1490 AM at the bottom of the hours. We usually do lots of stuff coming on. You know, that billionaires tax just ain't about billionaires. Ashley Zavala, KCRA3, have a big report on that. We'll get into how you are getting hosed. And they are going, again, the false advertisement of what this is really all about and evils of public employees and government electeds trying to screw us completely into the ground. Also, Ashley has a great report on high-speed rail. She's been trying to get a interview with the head of that, the guy that was arrested, and they put all kinds of parameters on it. Well, we don't want to talk about this and we don't want to talk about that. So Ashley basically gave them the middle finger and said, we're not doing the interview. A couple of high-profile stars passed away. We'll get to that and much, much more on today's show. But I've always told you, and I've always made the contention, that those that shout racism are the real racist. And as you see from the caricature that we open the show with, Democrats giving CPR to racism and saying, don't you dare die on us. We're trying to win elections. The Supreme Court came down and said, equal protection under the law, the 14th Amendment of the Constitution applies to everyone. You cannot draw congressional districts based on the shade of brown of your skin tone. That is discrimination, and that is not equal protection under the law. Hence, the Voting Rights Act, and that they threw that part out and made in a lot of especially southern states where Democrats have gerrymandered to the max their congressional districts and on down, and statewide their legislatures, city councils, sewer cleaning commissioners, and the like. That's why they have to give CPR to racism, because that and election rigging is how they have got and maintained power, and especially in California. You just seen it by the racist map that was just drawn. And the pure racism political power strain that goes with it. Here we have Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader, and let's hope we can keep him that way. Of the Democrats in Congress, here we go.
Today's decision by this illegitimate Supreme Court majority.
So we start off right. We wonder why we have the third assassination attempt against Trump. You're going to hear why here in a second. The illegitimate Supreme Court that did, they're not illegitimate. They are 111% legitimate, you asshole, Hakeem, lying piece of crap, Jeffries. They're as legitimate as Earl Warren, Thurgood Marshall, Anton Scalia, and anybody else that sat on that court. You're just trying to fuel the flames of hate, as you do every day. This Hakeem Jeffries is evil.
Strikes a blow against the Voting Rights Act and is designed to undermine the ability of communities of color all across this country to elect their candidate of choice.
No, You used racism to seize political power for your racist ideas, Hakeem. It's exactly what you and your forefathers in the Democratic Party have done. What did Lyndon Baines Johnson say? Yeah, 70, 80 years ago. Yeah, we'll have them Negroes voting for us for 100 years.
But we're not here to step back. We're here to fight back.
Yes.
Now, when this
We're here to fight back. Yes. Got to have that revival church stuff going. Yeah, praise the Lord. Yeah, that illegitimate court. And it's coming.
decision came out earlier today, it's an unacceptable decision, but not an unexpected decision.
It was totally acceptable and expected because it upheld the Constitution of the United States of America. You communist tool.
Because this isn't even really the Roberts court. It's the Trump court.
Yeah. Yes.
And what
It's the Trump court. Yes! Praise the Lord! Got to have that look. That looks like a church revival standing behind it. Yes! Trump the radio. You know, guys like Royce, you got to watch them guys. They're just looking. They would love to put us all in nooses. Just like that piece of crap, Bubba Wallace, Darrell Wallace Jr. doesn't know a pull-down rope from a noose to save his ass.
we would expect from the Trump court is an effort to continue their scheme to suppress the vote and rig the midterm elections and beyond. Because
No. False. Incorrect. You're lying through your ass, asshole. The Supreme Court upheld the Constitution of the United States and said no more racism in drawing congressional maps.
these extremists have failed America in every possible way. They failed on the economy. They failed on health care. They're failing as it relates to this reckless and costly war of choice. The extremists have completely and totally failed America.
Healthcare, single payer, Obamacare has ruined healthcare. Joe Biden and his inflation has wrecked the economy. Barack Obama, with letting Iran have nuclear materials and making a deal, have got us in the state we have today. What's the common theme there? The Democratic Party, not Donald J. Trump.
So they've concluded, aided and abetted by the Trump court, that they have to cheat to win.
Yes.
Every time. They have to cheat. The biggest cheaters are the ones that screaming, oh, the other side is cheating the loudest. Fact, 111%. We'll get more into this and more as we realm into the rest of today's show. It's extremely, and I mean extremely, dangerous to have Hakeem Jeffries as minority leader of the House, and the mentality that wants him to be Speaker of the House. I mean, what day do we stop being stupid? What day do we make wise choices? You want the rest of the country, if you keep going on this track, and Trump is evil, and bowing down to the throne of Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, and you want them to run the Senate and the House because Trump is mean. I don't know. We're on a trajectory back. You know, we maybe had a year here. We had 4 years, 17 to 20. we're kind of straightening things out. Then we had 4 years of us putting their thumb back on us again. We had about a year. Seemed like the relief was coming. Now everybody, even Trump supporters, are going haywire. Except, well, we'll get into that in a bit. I want to get to Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida. He does a pretty good Hakeem Jeffries, I gotta say. Hopefully, here we go.
You know, obviously people like it. Sometimes you got people
Why is
in
Ron
D.C.
not
and New York
playing?
who may not like, and they may say,
Well, he should be playing. He's talking. I had that all nice and glowing. Yet we're not hearing anything. Why is his audio on his mic's on? Oh, there we go. Maybe we'll get it now. Here we go.
you know, obviously people
Nope.
like it. Sometimes you got people in
No,
D.C.
Ron.
and
Oh,
New
he did
York,
such a great.
uh,
I had a clip with such a great one. Anyway, Florida passed a brand new map that hopefully, and a few others, and I don't know if it's too late for this election, but anywhere from 10 to 15 seats are likely to be picked up by Republicans
you know, obviously people
after
like it. Sometimes
this.
you got people in D.C. and New York
Absolutely. 100%. God dang it. Oh, Lord. Things just went crashing in the studio. 1,000% correct. Supreme Court ruling. We're going to get to the point, hopefully, where all this ridiculous stuff stops. Let's see if we can get Ron back.
We gonna do maximum warfare against Republicans, Florida Republicans.
Let me start that
you
again.
F around,
Here
you
we go.
We gonna do maximum warfare against Republicans, Florida Republicans. You F around, you gonna find out all this stuff. And you know what I said was, listen. And he's like, oh, if you do the redistricting, we're going to take out all your members. We're going to do all this stuff. And what I said was, go ahead. Make my day. You don't think we're going to... You want to come down here and spend money in Florida? Roll the dice and take your chances. But don't think that you can come down here, issue threats to us, and somehow you're going to make us flinch. That is not happening, and in fact, it did not happen, because as soon as he came out and started doing that last week, Florida legislature turned around and they passed a new map. We gonna do maximum warfare against Republicans, Florida Republicans. You F around, you gonna find out all this stuff.
Now that's how you stand up. Those Ron DeSantis in Florida is doing it like this is how Republicans should play the game. Quit kowtowing, bowing down to Hakeem Jeffries. Oh, please don't hurt me. No, take it right back to them. Mock them at every turn with their stupid, racist, hateful ideas. You only fight evil by combating it straight on, head in the eye. You don't back down. You don't flinch. And Ron DeSantis in the Florida legislature did not do that. And thank your lucky stars. And that should be a template. That should be the template of the center-right freedom and liberty types. Pass the Save America Act. Get fair elections. I don't care if you got to beat John Thune with wet noodles. Show some balls up there in the Senate, you senators. If Thune's going to play Mitch McConnell, get him out as Senate Majority Leader. Isn't that hard? Show some balls. A couple of side notes. David Allan Coe, one of your best honky-tonk bar band extraordinaire, passed away today. And his most famous song is one he didn't even, well, I don't know, Take This Job and Shove It, which he didn't sing, but Johnny Paycheck made famous, and they did a movie about. Or his famous song, It's All That I Can Do to Keep From Crying. And that was written by Steve Goodman. And he passed away at 86 today. And they're probably, like I say, he put on a heck of a show. I mean, if you're into Western country, real country music as it used to be, bar band, white hillbillies, he was one of the best at that genre. The other one, the last surviving brother of the famous Bettenhausen family of Tony Bettenhausen Sr., Merle Bettenhausen, passed away at 82 today. Merle was the middle brother. Tony Bettenhausen Sr. died in a practice crash, practicing for the Indianapolis 500. I think it was at 52. His oldest son, Gary, won the pole, was leading the race in 72 by a mile, and then the engine blew with about 20 laps to go. And he was longtime USAC sprint car champion with the Gary and Larry show with Larry Dixon in the late 60s, early 70s. They had a lot of battles across the speedway. Merle did too. He was outstanding sprint car and midget pilot. Lost his arm in an Indy car at Michigan, I think around 72, 73. Came back and raced and won in midgets of that, and has had some health troubles, but he finally succumbed to those and passed away at 82, the last of the famous Bettenhausen brothers of Tony Bettenhausen Sr. Tony Bettenhausen III died in a plane crash about 40 years ago. So rest in peace, Merle and David. It's sometimes beyond the pale of some of the things that we have to put up with. But this whole billionaires tax. Oh, we're just SEIU, the biggest realm of public employees, they're going broke. They're watching they're saying, hey, if we don't steal more money from the working class, all your salaries and your golden salaries and your platinum benefits and your diamond health care is going away. So now it's just a one-time, this billionaire's tax, and we're only going to tax the wealthy. Here's the KCRA3 report to set her up.
This November. That proposal places a one-time, they say, 5% tax on billionaires and their assets to fund health care programs.
But a major business group is warning there is a hidden piece of this proposal that could expand the tax to more people in different ways. Our KCRA3 political director, Ashley Zavala, joins us with what both sides are saying, Ashley.
Yeah, this is a discussion that's happening online right now about this piece of the proposal. The California Business Roundtable lobbies on behalf of the state's largest businesses. That group is warning that buried in the billionaires tax is a line that could allow state lawmakers to impose this tax beyond billionaires without voter approval.
How many times do we have to go through this deception crap? Oh, we're going to build this bullet train. It's going to go from LA to San Francisco. 2 hours. 2 hours you're going to get from LA to San Francisco. Or San Francisco to LA. And you know what? They'll pay you to ride on it. In fact, you'll get blessed by the Reverend Hakeem Jeffries when you get off the bullet train in San Francisco on top of that. You might even be raining dollar bills. You might even gain more money. Oh, everybody, billions? Oh, 20 years later, they ain't even got 1 foot of track laid for the actual bullet train. And we'll get to that when we join KMET too. Ashley's been trying to get the head of the disaster, the biggest hosing of taxpayers in the history of the world, the stupid train. And then, oh, there's all kinds of conditions. Well, you know, they lie, deception. There is no transparency and accountability. In California especially. And again, watch what they're doing. Look at this deal with Hakeem in the voting. Oh, you gotta hate. It's that hater Donald Trump that did. That Constitution, what he's really saying is tear down America. They hate the Constitution because it empowers the individual. The SEIU workers and the government employees backing this, the teachers and the firefighters that are holding their hand, do not believe in the Constitution and the United States of America. And I invite any of them in here to come in here and prove me wrong. Collectively, that is the fact, Jack. And again, if you got balls enough, roll right in here because we'll have a very frank, interesting, and entertaining discussion. But it's part of this whole almost unbelievable set of circumstances. If you need to meet, voting's going to start next week. Ballots are going to be mailed out Monday, next Tuesday, voting starts for governor of California. We have to get Steve and Chad in number 1 and number 2. Steve's reeling up there. We got to get Chad more votes. And we have to get center-right, freedom, liberty types to turn out in a greater percentage than they would, which is easier in the primary election because you're only going to have about 40% turnout. So now it's crunch time.
25 seconds, 25 seconds.
No more sitting on your hands. No more excuses. It's time to get out there and do a little work before they take away your little 3x5 screen in your little world. It's about to disappear if you don't get off your dead asses out there. As Jesse said, we'll be joining the Mighty Met KMET 1490 AM. We'll show you how the billionaires
2 seconds, here we go.
affect you.
Today, IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
that funky soul live guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday, live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire in the aforementioned AM band. Join your vast video dance in the Uvalippi Network, YouTube. Check us out, subscribe, type in IE Newswire, and that you'll be amazed at the amount of joy that will bring into your life. We covered the racist Hakeem Jeffries and the Democratic Party pushing their racism at every opportunity, each and every day. And this is the moniker. Don't you die on us, we're trying to win an election. That's the Democratic Party giving CPR to racism. And you wonder, no wonder Trump's been shot at 3 times. It's a Trump court and they're illegitimate and this is how they've screwed all of us over. They started this in California and Texas. Like I said, for 70, 80 years ago, Lyndon Baines Johnson said, we'll have them Negroes voting Democratic for 100 years. That's the racism of the Democratic Party, and it's in full effect. The KKK members of the Democratic Party are still there because they're still pushing the racism cause, as Hakeem Jeffries did yesterday. Couple of sad notes. David Allan Coe, one of the best bar hillbilly performers of that. He wrote the Take This Job and Shove It, the Johnny Paycheck, made very famous, and It's All That I Can Do to Keep From Crying, his most famous song, which was written by Steve Goodman, but that's the all-time country and Western music song. And Merle Bettenhausen, the middle brother of the Bettenhausen brothers, passed away, famous IndyCar, sprint car, midget, open wheel driver of his own right. He was the last of the brothers. Gary passed away about 5 years ago. Indy 500 pole winner, USAC sprint car champion. Tony, the youngest brother, died in a plane crash while going to an IndyCar race about 40 years ago. Merle was the last one. He lost his right arm in an IndyCar crash in Michigan around 72. So rest in peace, David and Merle. We get back to, we started this, the whole billionaires tax. And the SAIU and the government employees are all, they're going broke. They've thoroughly wrecked California. Despite record $349 billion budget, they're driving us into the ground. This is over twice, almost 2.5 times of what we were spending just a scant 12 years ago. But this is why they're lying sacks of ish. Your billionaires tax, we're only going to tax the billionaires. Of course, the great Ashley Zavala says, read the fine print.
Lobbies on behalf of the state's largest businesses. That group is warning that buried in the billionaires tax is a line that could allow state lawmakers to impose this tax beyond billionaires without voter approval. The billionaires tax proposal is 32 pages long and talks about how this whole tax would work. Now, the group is worried specifically about a section on page 26 that states, quote, the legislature may amend the 2026 billionaire tax by statute passed in each house of the legislature by roll call vote entered into the journal, 2/3 of the membership concurring, if the statute is consistent with and furthers the purpose of the 2026 billionaires tax. Brooke Armour, the spokesperson for the California Business Roundtable, explains the group's concern with that.
It's a massive expansion of the legislature's ability to tax not just billionaires, but they can choose to change the tax threshold. They can choose to pick different property that gets taxed. But what it really does is it gives the legislature the ability and the power to tax anybody's savings account, retirement accounts. It puts all of that power in the legislature after voters.
So if you own a home, if you have an IRA, if you have a savings account, you went out and saved and toiled and got you a new Corvette. You didn't know you were a billionaire. And you know what? If you keep electing Democrat kooks to our legislature, they can lose 6 votes and still pass something like that in the Assembly. They can lose 4 votes in the Senate. They got a 75% majority in each house, 80-60 in the Assembly, 30-40 in the Senate. That's 75%. They only need 2/3. They can leave Democrats on the table and pass these tax increases. This is what the Business Roundtable is warning you about. This isn't no different than if you don't pass this tax, we're going to shut down the cops, or we're going to close the schools, or in Moreno Valley with Measure U. Oh, we're going to build you a police station, provide more cops. Oh, well, we can't do that, but we jacked our salaries up through the moon. $30 million. Where did it go?
If they pass this.
You know, technically, the legislature can already impose new taxes, but the concern here, I guess, is that because voters approve it, they could point back to this and make it a bit easier to go through that process. Is that how you're interpreting it?
Certainly, and then it also allows for certain property that's tax that's protected right now by taxpayers, like Prop 13 and different property. It gives the legislature a workaround on things like Prop 13, where the legislature can now tax property under the wealth tax provisions, and they can expand that, which they can't do right now because that's constitutionally protected. But this measure would be a workaround on that as well, which is also very concerning.
We still pay some of the highest property taxes in the nation. Even though Prop 13 has kept them down, our real estate prices are the highest in the nation. We're approaching $1 million for a single-family home in California. It's been, almost 50 years, getting close to it. They have worked day and night trying to figure out how we're going to screw the people. Remember what Prop 13 was about. They were throwing grandma and grandpa out of their house. They worked 40 years, finally paid off the mortgage, kids are out of the house, oh, we're going to retire. And then they started, we paid out, we're going to vacation, maybe go see the grandkids that finally bailed out of here, that are in Texas or Tennessee or North Carolina or wherever. Oh, we'll just start jacking your property taxes through the moon. They had to sell their house. A lot of, especially majority of old people had to wind up selling their houses until Prop 13 came in 78. And we're going to repeat this again.
Now, we reached out to the healthcare union backing and trying to get this on the ballot, the SEIU UHW, for comment. Its chief of staff, Suzanne Jimenez, said, quote, the California Business Roundtable is lying, period. And they are once again ignoring the fact that federal healthcare cuts from the big, beautiful bill are already crushing the businesses they are supposed to represent. She goes on to say, as Section 50310 of the Billionaires Tax says, any amendments cannot change the fundamental purpose of the act, which is to impose a one-time tax on billionaires. Obviously, there are two very different interpretations of this line that's in this proposal. It's really to be seen first if this even gets on the ballot.
Well, and the group says it turned in enough signatures for it to qualify for the ballot yesterday. Where's the update with that?
Yeah, it'll take some time before we know if that's for sure. According to the Secretary of State's website, the signature verification process has not yet started on this. SEIU UHW says it collected and submitted about 1.5 million signatures, which is more than enough to go to voters in November again if those signatures are verified. But again, it could be months before that signature counting process is finalized and that the initiative is official.
All right, we'll keep following.
So they're coming in late to the process. That's why in the O'Keefe tapes and others, where they were paying $20 a signature to get this, that's how desperate they are. They might not qualify it for the November ballot, even if it qualifies, because they might run out of time to have the initiative in for the ballot. No, like the Say Prop 13 Act or voter ID and a couple other tax measures that we'll get into that we need to oppose. Those two we need to support. Should be obvious. But I can tell you, how does it, SEIU can't predict what the legislature or courts may decide. So their premise that it's a lie, they're lying. Nothing can go by the original provision of the law, if you want to put it that way, but then there's always the interpretation of it. So if it isn't a lie, it's another deception. And anybody from the SEIU or anyone else want to correct anything you think I have wrong, please come in and do that. If it isn't one thing, it's another. Here's an ex-post by El Presidente Donald J. Trump. How much abuse can Republican Senate take from the radical left lunatics in the form of Democratic senators before they blow up, terminate the filibuster, and approve things at a record clip, including the Save America Act, which that would be unthinkable without the filibuster termination. The Dems will do it the first hour of the first day. Do not be stupid, President Donald J. Trump. And this is my argument to those that, well, Trump ain't doing that, and Trump ain't doing that. Or some Trump supporters are now backing up. Well, what is he supposed to do? We're not putting enough pressure on the other end of this to get it through the legislatures so we can get on with business. It's really amazing. Some of the biggest supporters, white, non-college working class, are all in a tither, going backwards on their support for Trump. It's kind of interesting who has not only jumped on the bandwagon, is increasingly jumping on the bandwagon. Here's Harry Enton from CNN.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing right now in the numbers is President Trump and the Republican Party are chipping away at the long-term advantage that Democrats have had with black voters, with African Americans. You can see it right here. Look, Trump's approval among African Americans at this point in term one, he was at 12%. You know, he's been losing ground with a lot of groups. He's gaining ground with African Americans. He's up to 16.
Say what? Trump is gaining ground in the black community, up almost 25% at the same time as his first term.
8% at this point. And you say, this isn't that big of a shift. But I will tell you, Republicans absolutely love this shift that's going on because Democrats have had such a long-term advantage. The fact that he's actually gaining ground versus where he was in term number one, this has major implications for elections down the line because Democrats, especially in a lot of these tight races, you talk about places like Georgia, right down in the South, you see this type of movement for Trump actually gaining ground. This could have major ramifications and help put Republicans over the top in a number of southern places in the midterm elections.
But do you see this as part of a bigger trend?
I see this as absolutely part of a bigger trend. Donald Trump's Republican Party is absolutely gaining ground, not just him gaining in terms of his approval rating, but look at the party ID margin, Kate, because this to me was absolutely stunning. Look at this party ID margin among African Americans. At this point in Trump term number one, Democrats had a 63-point advantage. That has absolutely fallen. Look at where it is now. A double-digit shift away. Democrats, of course, still have the advantage, but it's a 12-point shift to the Republican Party. And I look back through Gallup's records. They sent me their records. And this, in fact, lead that Democrats have is actually smaller than any lead from 2006 to 2021. So Democrats are leading. But again, we're talking about chipping away. Republicans are chipping away at this long-term advantage that Democrats have had among African Americans. We see it in terms of Trump's approval rating, and we even see it to a wider degree among the party ID margin, where all of a sudden there are a number of African Americans who are walking away from the Democratic Party and a number of them who are walking into the Republican tent.
That is very interesting, looking at that past Gallup information.
Yeah.
What does this mean for the race for control in Congress?
Okay, so you see this right here. You see this 51-point advantage that Democrats have, significantly less than you see that 63-point advantage. And what we will note was back in 2024, right, Donald Trump put in a historically strong performance among African Americans. Democrats performed the worst in a generation. Have they gained any of that coalition back from where they fell down to in 2024? But take a look here. Okay. Choice for election among African Americans. Kamala Harris was leading amongst that group in the pre-election polling by 63 points. Are Democrats gaining back any of that ground? It's a 62-point advantage now. Republicans are holding on to the gains that they made among African Americans in 2024. Republicans are gaining among African Americans. They are chipping away at that long-term advantage. The Donald Trump-led Republican Party is making gains among African Americans that we simply put have not seen the Republican Party make.
Maybe now you see why Hakeem Jeffries is pulling out the all-out racism card. Because the constituency that they've had a deadlock on for decades is now starting to crack, and Donald J. Trump is the one that's cracking it. And that has them quaking in their boots like they haven't been in a long, long time. With DeSantis coming in, depending how the Supreme Court rules on the Virginia redistricting map, if they throw that out, with the Supreme Court with this, we'll see how that affects the 26 elections. It's definitely going to affect the 28. Interesting times. To get to the other story of the derailed high-speed rail, the bullet train, the stupid train, $20 million, 20 years, nothing hardly done, no track laid. They're going from Wasco to Merced instead of LA to San Francisco. The great KCRA 3 reporter Ashley Zavala, she had asked the head of the derailed high-speed rail, who was arrested and all this, hey, wouldn't do an interview. And then they started putting all sorts of conditions in this, and you gave me... It's KCRA 3 report.
Wilson, a lot to unpack here, as you said. We're talking about the High-Speed Rail Authority's 2026 business plan. This is required under state law to provide specific information about the project and money moving forward. But some state officials tasked with independent oversight of the project say this plan falls short. The plan claims the Bakersfield to Merced line will cost $36 billion with the goal of completing that segment of the track by 2033. But this plan does not say how exactly the state plans to pay for that line in full, as it is expected to be short billion.
Of course it's support. That was, I think the whole project from LA to San Francisco was less than $36 billion when they sold it to us about 25 years ago with a bond that we, the dummies of California, passed.
Of dollars. It also says the original plan for a bullet train between San Francisco to Los Angeles could cost between $126 billion to $231 billion, with no money identified for that. So the specific problems pointed out by the state's inspector general this week. The plan does not provide clear details required under state law related to the costs and timeline. The plan also assumes California lawmakers and the governor will make big changes to state law when it comes to permitting and regulations. It also states there could be significant changes to the project that have not been authorized. Those changes include a plan to move the location of one of the very first bullet train stations from downtown Merced to the suburbs of Merced.
No, this is absurd. It could cost 126 to 230 billion. Why don't we just say this? It's going to cost gazillions. Nobody has any. At the rate they're going, and we're not. It's not going to even be in downtown Merced. What, population of 40,000? Oh, we're going to move it out to the. Or I don't know. Maybe it's 100,000. Oh, we'll move it out to the suburbs of Merced. We're changing. God. The worst nightmare that has ever been produced in the history of the world could not even compare to this.
This could shave off 9 miles from the project, but place the line in a more suburban part instead of a busier downtown. The plan also changes the project from a double-track high-speed rail system to a single-track system, which some lawmakers worry may not actually make this train high speed. Overall, state officials say the plan lacks transparency around these big changes that I just laid out, and that could end up meaning less track for more money. The California High-Speed Rail Authority Board was expected to approve this draft business plan today. They had it on their agenda for the meeting in Sacramento. The board chairman, Tom Richards, announced at the start of the meeting that they would delay that vote and move it to their meeting in May. At this meeting today, the board did get a lot of public comment in opposition of that plan. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle in the state Senate also had big issues with the plan, airing out frustration during a hearing at the state capitol earlier this week. I checked in with Republican State Senator Tony Strickland about the board's decision to hold off. Strickland is the vice chairman of the Senate's Transportation Committee.
Well, I'm not surprised. After we had the informational hearing on Monday, clearly this plan is unrealistic. There's many facets we can tackle, from the shortage of cash flow to the lack of financing, the lack of thought process, to just totally ignoring bills and legislation that we put here in the legislature that they.
Tony Thurmond is way too nice. The worst words in the world could not describe what sort of con has been pulled, what sort of lies, deceit have been pulled off on the California people. Well, it could cost 126 billion to 230 billion. Or 6 trillion at the rate we're going, and it will never be done. Just like when they tried to do a freeway. Freeways we used to have done in 6 months a year now take 20. And even adjusted for inflation at 25 to 30 times the cost. The utter stupidity that we have going on is beyond out of control. A couple of polls came out. One anti-Steyer independent expenditure committee, so it could be, it's a little on the suspect side, but it's got Baccaria at 1, 24, Hilton at 20, Star at 15, Bianco at 13, Porter 10, Mahan, Villaraigosa. So, top 2 in June to win. Hilton's doing good. We got to get more Democrats to scatter down the field. I hope Mahan and others, Katie Porter, start lowering the boom. Mahan did a little bit at the last candidates forum. They need to really start cracking on Baccaria. The center-right freedom liberty types need to prop up Sheriff Chad. This is going to be critical because, like I say, next Tuesday voting starts. And we can win this if we play our cards right. And not be stupid about it. Because center-right freedom liberty types, we win or lose this in June. Because the odds of a Republican beating any Democrat in California in November, at best, are 1 in 50. You maybe got a 2% shot. If we get Steve and Chad in the top 2, then it's a 100% guarantee that we will have a center-right freedom and liberty type as governor of California for maybe the first time in 40 years. And that's no joke. But again, you're only going to get 40% turnout. So if we and center-right freedom liberty types need to boost their voter turnout, and it has the most effectiveness in the primaries, where you only have about maybe a little more than half of you will have in the general election. So it's crunch time to get after it. It's only a month. Everybody pitches in. Get your friends, neighbors. If they won't vote Republican for Steve or Chad, get them to vote for Porter or Mahan or Villaraigosa or whomever, the lower tier candidates. Even Betty Thurman, Swalwell. That's the protest vote. If anybody wants a protest vote on the Democratic side, vote for Swalwell. Stick it to them. Man, what a deal. Well, there it goes. We usually say at this time, mandatory. Back here in 23 Hours Live. You're the best darn show in the whole wide world. Till then, see ya.
All right, have a great night.
You got it. If you can check, I'll send you a link to my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
When you guys click in, it goes KMET 1490.
Yeah.
It'll run the video, and then that thing will come on. Just the black KMET 1490, and then the audio stays okay. But it keeps switching between your moniker and that for the rest of this, for the half hour I'm on with you guys.
I'll have to check that out.
I'll send you a link to some of the shows you can look at.
All right, no problem. Thanks.
You got it.